Hello and welcome. I'm AJ Kish, head of marketing at Parakeet. And in the nest with me today is a man with many talents. He's done outbound, he's done inbound, he's built pipelines and brands, and now he's helping B2B brands turn employees into creators with video. And by the way, he really likes pasta. Dom Odoguardi, welcome to the show.
I do like pasta. Thank you for calling that out. Thank you for having me, man. I'm very excited to be here, especially on this is being filmed on my launch day. So this is a very important day. I am just like, my heart's literally out there. Like, I'm so excited. And I'm so excited to talk to you.
Awesome. Tell me what that feels like being a founder who has done, you've done sales. We just went through the intro, but you've done sales, you've done marketing, you've done a bunch of content. Like, what does this feel right now for you? And now having like the title of founder, does that change your perception of all of this?
Honestly, the title doesn't change much for me. It kind of always felt like I was a founder, right? Like, I've always worked for very small startups. I've always had a side gig. So I've always had that kind of like entrepreneurial bone in my body. I think what I do appreciate more is that I've been at every single point of the funnel. You know, like I've been an SDR, I've been an AE, I've head up marketing, I've done marketing campaigns, I've done CS work, even though CS work is like my least favorite, to be honest, but like I did it. And it just makes me appreciate how all of these different aspects of go-to-market converge. And now that I've launched a video agency, you know, specifically to help companies build employee-generated content, I can see what content resonates with whom at what part of the funnel. It just makes a lot more sense now. And it took so long to get here, but like now that I see it, I'm like, wow, I get how everything's supposed to play out.
So naturally, the entrepreneurial spirit is one kind of rooted in sales, right? Like largely it's an over communicative, generally it's relatively confident as well, but it's one to say like, I have something of value, or I can provide a service that is valuable to you, your company, your team, et cetera. There, like, how do you taking that from organizations who have already been established and now doing that into your own thing, like where in the go-to-market strategy or funnel, like, are you starting? Is it all at once? Are you starting from the end and working your way back? Is it inbound versus outbound? A lot of questions there, but largely, how are you structuring that kind of go-to-market strategy?
I think the most clear thing in your mind when you're starting a company is always, who am I serving and what problem am I serving for them? And so it comes down to like the audience, the ICP, right? And that's the thing I had in my brain going into this. And I've realized it's a mix. Over time, you constantly have to reiterate and pivot and go back and forth. And maybe the ICP you started with is not the ICP that you want to move forward with, for many different reasons, right? It could be your strengths. It could be the industry insights that you have. It could be what you're even offering, right? It may resonate more with a different segment of people. And so I started everything looking at my ICP, looking at their problems, seeing how I can help those problems. It later evolved into, what am I good at providing, and what ICP now is aligned with what I am good at providing. So it's kind of like a win-win, right? And so that made me have to return back and forth. It's just like a constant, you know, it's a constant hassle because you're going back and forth all the time until you can finally get it right. And to be honest, most companies don't even have it 100% right. They continuously revisit their messaging, they revisit their outbound, their inbound, their ICP. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but that's how I'm kind of looking at it right now.
Definitely does. So when let's assume, right, because you're a bit of a public figure on LinkedIn, you know, you put out a ton of content, you work with other people as well, so you've molded other people's ICPs. Now you have an idea of what yours is. You know, you've really kind of hit a bunch of different facets there. So assuming the messaging is, we'll say, within 90% accurate at this point, obviously you always have to kind of recalibrate. But assuming in this scenario, the messaging is pretty well buttoned up. Like, do you see that more channels are more, or certain channels are more effective than others? Or does it really come down to who's on the other side of the selling equation and what their motivations are to buy?
Yeah. It comes down to the people. It comes down to your audience, your ICP, where they live, what type of content they consume, and how they like to be talked to. So to give you an example, because I mean, the easiest answer I can give you is to give you examples. When I was selling sales software to salespeople, I would be doing a lot of cold calling, and it was the easiest channel to get to them. That's a lot different compared to selling to marketing folks, right? Marketing folks like to read, they like to see content because they build content, right? And so more inbound activities are more helpful to attract that ICP. Now, of course, I'm saying go wherever your ICP is, live within the medium that they like to live in. But to be completely honest, there are people that are just so good at a certain channel that these rules do not apply to. There's cold callers out there, cold calling some of the hardest industries like IT, engineering, right? And these people are notorious for not picking up the phone. And they just kill it because they've been doing it for so long. They know how to talk to these people, they know how to cut through the fluff, and they're really good at it. And then there's other folks who are like really great at making content, for example, right? And they're attracting a bunch of buyers that normally do not consume content, or at least in the way that we think about it. So there's always that little caveat, right? I think the general idea of going where your ICP lives and using the mediums that they use is important. But if you're really, really good in one place, double down on that one place.
So we've assuming we've got the messaging right,
Yeah.
assuming we've got now the channel right.
Yeah.
How do you cut through the fluff?
It depends. Again, I hate how all my answers are. It depends, right? Because every scenario is a bit different.
It's a good answer. Unfortunately, that
Yeah,
I feel like that is kind of the right. It depends. It really
it
depends.
depends. It depends who you're talking to. It depends what matters to them. In my perspective, cutting through the fluff is cutting through all the unnecessary bullshit. To be
Let me
quite
ask you
frank.
this,
Yeah,
kind of a different way to
yeah.
to reframe it. Then, what in your mind is fluff?
Fluff are niceties, right? Hope this email finds you well, right? Great chatting with you today, right? Like fluff are niceties. Fluff is like front loading a bunch of just like, we do XYZ, like here are our case studies, right? All that stuff is just fluff. What comes down to its core is you're reaching out to me. Like, granted, let's say that this is for outbound activity, right? You're reaching out to me as the buyer. Why would I talk to you? What can you do for me? Like, what's important to me, right? And cutting through all that stuff is what's going to be important and respectful to your buyers because you're respecting their time and you're getting directly to the point, right? I'm not saying go straight for the pitch slap, right? But you don't have to send like a 3-paragraph email. You can keep it straightforward, right? You do this. These are the problems that people typically have when they're inside, your arena. Here's how we help. If it's not a fit, don't worry. But if it is, can I send you over, a video? Can I send you over a white paper, right? Can I book a call with you? This is all very general stuff, right? It's obviously much harder to do this type of stuff. But the fluff is all that stuff that is not needed in the conversation. Just get directly to the point. A lot of people respect that.
So you mentioned about the why.
Yeah.
Why does this matter to me? Why should I care that you're reaching out? Why should I consider your service or product or something like that? What has been, in your experience, like the one of the best ways to figure out the answer to that question?
Talking on like unlimited amounts of conversations, right?
Is there a specific person that you're talking to?
So for larger companies, I always recommend doing this, and I've seen it play out really well. But if you're in a larger company and you're reaching out to a certain ICP, find that ICP within your company and talk to that person, and then ask that person to refer you over to other people in their network because most likely they know one or two other people who are the same ICP. And at that point, you can just get validation, is what I call it, right? You can just get the at bats, get the conversations in, understand how they speak, understand what matters to them, what challenges that they have, what things that they need help with, where they find or consume information. That gets it makes it a lot easier to be able to go to market because now you know the ins and outs. And of course, you can always get these conversations, these at bats, this feedback, right, through traditional methods as well, right? Cold calling, DM people, have as many conversations as possible. It's tough to get them, but when you do get them, it makes it a lot easier.
But now we've got the message, we've got the medium, we've got the answer to the why. We're kind of building a full GTM. kind of a little bit of a playbook here. So now the next extension to kind of this sequence that we're in the process of building,
Yeah.
naturally a little bit of a buzzword, but like personalization.
Yeah.
When you think about whether it's a cold call or a LinkedIn DM, or I would even say creating content, right? I think there's an
Yeah.
aspect of some sort of personalization that could be done for a certain ICP. Like, what is the line in your mind, if there is a line,
Yeah.
that is too much, not enough? How do you balance? And what is is there a point of maybe diminishing returns when it comes to personalization and outreach?
Can I can I take this back a second? Can I go through a
Yeah,
little history lesson maybe just to kind of like
absolutely.
paint the picture, the context? If you go back to like let's say the early 2000s, right? And you look up telemarketing, and maybe there's some videos out there of people who are like doing telemarketing, which are cold calls, right? They're being highly personalized, they're being highly relevant. Sure, they have a script, but they're using that as a skeleton to get through and to get a real conversation going. We went from a medium from of outbound from one to one, and marketing was always one to many. And so with marketing, you just talk broadly, right, and see who that message captures. With all automation platforms, with AI in the mix, right, with everything included, we kind of got to a point where the one-on-one interactions became one to many. And then you get situations where sales reps are spraying out, you know, millions of emails a month, all with the same exact message. Just small little tweaks because you have a clay agent, it's giving you some small little tweaks of personalization, right? And that just isn't as effective as the one-to-one motion. So to your question, just like painting that picture to your question, the things that do help, I actually like to call it more like relevancy than personalization. Because personalization, when I think of personalization, I think of like your dog's name, right? The high school you went to. When I think of relevancy, I think of what are you specifically doing right now that would trigger me to reach out to you, and just make it a totally genuine as humanly possible, right? They put up a LinkedIn post that they're working on this project, or that they're happy that they did this project. Maybe you help with those types of projects, right? Reach out, hey, for your next project, this is how we help. These are the typical challenges people have with their first call it project, right? But
Mhm.
find these triggers. It's really hard to find those triggers because it takes time and research, and that's something that we have lost, as people in go to market, as sellers, as marketers. But now there's a bunch of tools that can help you with that type of stuff, right? But that's the point. Like that's where you want to hone in on. That's the relevancy there, is understanding what they're going through right now that can trigger that outreach.
Are there points in which outbound sellers get relevancy wrong? Like, are there mistakes in which people are pulling from bits of information in which they think are relevant, or are trying to build rapport, or trying to establish a relationship with a brand new prospect, and there's just a disconnect? Like, have you seen that? And what are maybe the biggest pitfalls?
I think the biggest disconnect is not so much on like the actual information that they're using. It's the assumption that that information means something that it doesn't actually mean. I'll give you an example. Company gets funding, sales rep reaches out. Hey, I just saw you got funding, right?
That's a classic.
Typically when companies get funding, they're looking at these different projects, right? That's not necessarily a relevant trigger for what you're trying to sell. Maybe a way you could spin it, right, is like, congrats on getting your funding. This is what, when we talk to folks in your position and they just got funding, they're thinking about where they're going to put that money towards. Are you going to be working on these, three different projects in the next, quarter or two, right? If so, we can help with one of them.
Every touch point should feel like a reminder you're on their side, not a push to buy.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget who
Where's the
said that.
line? Where's the line between relationship building and being pushy? And I believe it was somebody on this call that might have said
Yeah. Yeah.
that.
Somebody on this call said
What does that mean? What does that quote mean to you? And again, like, where's kind of the relationship of
that.
going back to that? Like, we're establishing a relationship with a stranger, or we're trying to build a rapport,
Yeah.
versus like, the end of the month is coming, man, and I need a sale. I gotta
Yeah.
hit the quota.
Unfortunately, it's harder when you have these outside pressures. You got a sales manager, you got a quota, right? You want to go for the kill. It just doesn't work as much as being on their side. And what I meant when I said that, being on their side, It means you're actually a part of their buying journey, feeding them important information, feeding them information that can help them decide what's the best fit for their scenario. And sometimes this doesn't necessarily mean pointing them to your solution. It's kind of, in the realm of transparent sales, where you may not be the best person. You may not be the best solution for what they're looking for, right? And it takes a lot to understand that. Really good sellers know how to do that, right? Because they can weed out bad fits, especially very early on. But what I meant when I said be on their side is just continuously give them information that would help them figure out what they best need, right? These could be case studies, not only from your company, but maybe other companies focusing on a similar topic. These could be, posts on social media talking about the same issue other companies are facing. It could be anything, honestly. It could even be just a meme, like about the situation, giving a little chuckler or lighthearted joke for them, right? To see that they're not alone. But it's just like friendly reminders that, like, hey, I'm on your side to help you make a good decision. Here's some information that could be useful for you. It's not, hey, it's the end of the month, want to buy?
It feels as though, and again, this is coming from somebody who's traditionally been in a more marketing, almost strictly marketing capacity, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not somebody who carries a quota. I don't have to really worry about the end of the month or end of the quarter as it relates to typical sellers. I would imagine that when you're under the proverbial sales gun, right? When time is ticking and you're seeing the numbers kind of fly away and there's less and less, that it becomes really difficult to turn away somebody who is 75% not qualified.
Yeah. Yeah.
How can somebody make the shift? And is there a way to make a shift that is from the individual, or is it a bit of a systemic company culture process?
I 100% believe it's systemic. It comes down from leadership. I'm saying this coming from somebody who has done that before. I have pushed somebody to buy, multiple people to buy very early in my sales career, something that I don't believe that they should have bought in the first place, right? Because I had a quota, because I had pressure, because I wanted to hit President's Club, right? It takes a lot to take your ego out of the equation, but what's more than that is what's coming down from leadership and what tactics and what best practices and what philosophies they're pushing onto you. I had a sales manager once that was very, go, 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 close everything. It doesn't matter what it is. CS can worry about the problem. Just close them. And then I had sales
Throw
managers.
it over the fence and forget
Yeah,
about it.
exactly. And then my friends in CS would be calling me up saying, what did you do? Like, I say, yeah, I don't know how to save this customer. And then I had a sales manager who was a lot more laid back, and they were more in the camp of the philosophy that we have good fit accounts, we have bad fit accounts. Your job is to figure out which ones are good and go close them, and which ones are bad and would not see value with our solution, and never talk to them ever again. And I learned a lot from that manager, just being able to understand where am I putting my time and what am I doing that's in the best interest of the customers and our go-to-market team, sales, CS, marketing, right? Because it kind of messes up the whole funnel at that point. If you put a bad customer in pipeline, great, they close. Now CS is having a problem. Now marketing wants to go make a use case because you landed a brand new client in a brand new vertical. They go to talk to that customer. They say that they hate their product, so it doesn't help anybody.
The like what I'm find really interesting about your career and background, right, is that like you've double dipped so well in, again, both the kind of sales side of things and scaling the teams and doing all of that fantastic while also doing so much good marketing as well. Like, typically you would bucket, right, sales as some sort of a one-to-one transactional. I do this, I get a reaction, I either close a deal or I don't, or I move it down the kind of sequence, right? Whereas marketing is more traditionally viewed as the longer term play, which is why vanity metrics get such a bad rap of like, well, what does impressions mean right now? And it's like, well, it's brand building. Okay, what is brand building and what does that all lead to? Knowing that you have both a sales and kind of marketing background, do you see yourself verging using sales tactics with kind of that like marketing long-term background, or is it really because you're confident in your ability to do the selling and understand your ICP, that you don't need to talk to everyone and their mother and close whatever business comes through the door?
I think definitely a layer of a salesperson doing marketing gets them to understand more of how to speak to their ICP and what's a good fit versus a bad fit. I think it's something every salesperson should try to do, is like understand how marketing is really done. You
You're
gain a lot of
right.
respect for marketers.
You're right. Sales should report to marketing. I'm glad you brought that up.
The biggest debate of the century.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Both of us
sales
are going to be in hot water for that.
sales used to report to marketing, but then everything else got messed up. Yeah, there are some tactics that overlap. Obviously, I think it all, and I'm repeating myself a lot here, but it all comes down on what's the best interest for my customers. Who am I going to be able to provide the best possible product or service to, and then just marketing to those people. And having a sales background is so helpful because you can understand how to influence different stages of the funnel. And it's kind of like that. I forget what the saying is. Oh, it's with great power comes great responsibility, right? You have sales experience. You know how to persuade. You know how to push. You know how to get a deal done. Are you going to use it for good or for evil? And it all comes down to who's my ideal prospect, who's going to get the most value with my my current service or product, and then only going after those people. Spend less time on the bad fit ones, spend more time on the good fit ones, and then use your sales tactics and your sales knowledge to continuously keep pushing that sale until it's close one.
So taking that responsibility, right, that you
Yeah.
have to sell and market, right, in
Mhm.
good faith, and doing so with that kind of transparency, at least that we would all kind of generally hope for. um a story generally revolves around the product or service that is being sold and interacted with. What, in your mind, how big of a deal and effect does good storytelling have in cold outreach and selling in general?
I think it's everything, honestly. If I mean, you're selling stories at the end of the day, is how I like to think about it. You're selling a problem, and then you're selling the end goal, right? Of where people want to be. So if you can't package that correctly you know, in a cold call, in a short form, organic video on LinkedIn, in an email, in a DM, if you can't do that concisely and in a way that there actually is problem, climax, goal, you're not going to be able to get as many people in the door. And the best marketers and the best sellers always nail storytelling. It's human intuition. It's like the way that we live our lives and the way that we operate. We like good stories.
What makes a compelling story as it relates to selling, right? Like, we all know very good compelling stories. Like, everyone loves Hercules on Disney, and
Yeah.
the mythological, like, there's a reason why they withstood the test of time, the hero's arc and everything. Like,
Yeah.
is that part of the process that you implement within your selling as well?
The most fundamental piece of a story is a common enemy. And that's something that I try to just infuse in everything that I do, whether it's cold outreach, whether it's content that I'm posting, whatever medium it is. There needs to be an enemy that we can all agree is the actual enemy. And bad fit accounts are not going to agree, and that's okay, right? That's a story for another day. But the people who do agree that that is an enemy, they will instantly resonate, and they'll say, okay, like, yeah, I know this is the enemy, right? What are you saying? And that's where the story begins. You talk about the enemy, you talk about the situation that the enemy puts you in, the result of
Mhm.
the challenge. Then you talk about ways to relieve that enemy, to get to the solution. And your product service fits somewhere in that funnel, right? In the solution aspect of it. It's like a very basic thing. It's very broad, is what I'm trying to say. But really good marketing teams and really good sales teams know how to leverage a good story and where exactly to put their product or service in so that it flows correctly.
How do you view that relationship?
Yeah.
Where do you see the storytelling coming from and being um the kind of manipulated over time? Like, is it marketing first with a response from sales? Is it sales
Mhm.
saying, "Hey, this is what we're hearing from the teams"? Should it be an ongoing collaborative effort? Like, how do you see a better honing in on
Yeah.
that kind of conflict resolution between what the ICP has as their pain point and your product or service as the solution?
You mean how to initially like gather that information to understand like what the
Yeah,
enemy
both
is, or
both both the information gathering as well as kind of it as things progress. How do you continue to hone in on exactly
yeah.
what the perfect message is?
Well, the thing is, you're never going to get the perfect messaging, right? As your product evolves and as the market evolves, your messaging will also need to evolve to be able to stay relevant, right? I hate the thinking that all of these different aspects of go to market are segmented, right? You have sales, you have marketing, you have customer success. It's not the way that they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be intertwined together and work together. And the best like teams just boil it down to the very simple fundamentals of we need to talk to our potential buyers to understand how they speak, to understand their problems, to understand how we can resolve their problems. Great. Now let's take that, let's move towards our messaging and reach out to these buyers using the messaging we've created from the information. Okay, we're reaching out to our buyers now. We're in the execution stage. None of them are reaching back out to us, right? Like they don't want to talk to us. We probably got something wrong. We got to go back now to figure out what we got wrong. But it takes multiple different layers to get there, right? Because marketing is going to be doing one to many, sales is going to be doing one to one. They need to work together on creating or on getting the information, creating the messaging, and placing that messaging in the different buckets of are we going to be reaching out? Are we going to be using this for like, one to many piece of content? And then having to come back together and say, how are we doing? Is it working? It's not working. Okay, where is it not working?
So I kind of want to go back to the storytelling for a little bit there
Yeah.
and ask the question in terms of when you think about it, telling an effective story, right? Longer or mediums in which that allow you to tell that story in its entirety, like a long form video or like a brand video, something like
Yeah.
that. Obviously, it allows you to paint a really colorful picture of all the aspects of your business and how you resolve certain pain points. If you're on a cold call and you've only got really 8 seconds to get to somebody's attention, or if you're
Yeah.
writing a cold email and like you have subject line and preview text, and you got to hope that somebody takes an action to open that up, and then maybe you got a shot at selling from there.
Yeah.
Is there a process in which you take the fully established story and boil it down into its essence?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to minimize that down as much as possible. The issue is that less words means more work because now you have to really think of how you're gonna take something that's probably like 500 characters down to 4 characters. How are you gonna do that in a way that doesn't take away from the actual message and the essence of all of it? It's really hard to do. Um, and I think I do think and believe that like products that are super simple and super niche down, it's easier for them to do that, right? Say, hey, we solve one single problem. Are you facing this one single problem? Compared to products, for example, like Salesforce, where you could be like talking about so many crazy different things, right? For me, it's much easier because as of right now, I am a one-man band, right? So I can have this conversation to myself. I don't have to pull, different, I don't have to pull different teams and different leaders into the conversation to make an organizational change. I ask myself, is the content I am doing resonating with my ICP? And I can tell if it is or not by going directly to my comments, going to my engagement and seeing who's engaging with the content, going to my network on LinkedIn, for example, or my DMs and seeing are people DMing me, telling me that they resonate with this or asking me follow up questions or telling me this post was funny, right? And if they're not doing that, if I'm not getting people asking me to hop on networking calls, hop on podcasts, or just like, leads that want to actually do business with me, I'm doing something wrong. And so at that point, I have to realize what is it that I'm doing wrong. And you pinpoint it down from these different verticals. And then you have to start to think about what is it that my ICP really cares about, right? What pain, it all comes back down to like the pains, right? Like what challenges are they facing that they're probably talking about in Slack with their colleagues, or they're probably putting in YouTube to try to find a tutorial about, right? Like what do they want? What's their desire? And what's holding them back from getting that desire? How do I repackage that messaging? I think to like your point about Nike, like the just do it thing, it's so big now because they've just been consistently talking about it nonstop. Always, right? When you think of just do it, you think of Nike because it's always been there. But when it first came out, it wasn't that big. They had to continuously keep saying it over and over again. And to be honest, if they probably didn't, invest a lot of money in Shia LaBeouf, right, on doing that promo, if they didn't have to like put a bunch of trademarks and branding material behind just do it, they probably would have changed that message, but they didn't, right, because they had so much invested in it. I think that the what is it called? The moral of the story is like don't heavily invest in the message that you're going to end up changing eventually.
It's a good point. Nothing says commitment like a financial commitment.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously you're very active on LinkedIn. You post a lot of content there, and you just mentioned yourself that like in order for you to get or to continue to hone in on that messaging and to find the perfect resolution to somebody's pain point or conflict, that you're looking at your direct messages and the
Yeah,
comments and interactions and everything. So to ask the question kind of bluntly, right? Like how
yeah,
much of that are you using to dictate your outbound strategy?
all of it.
All of
Yeah,
it.
to be blunt about it, all of the information in the world. I think it's important to take the medium that you're using the most is going to be the medium that you're going to get the most information from, obviously, right? The more cold calls I do, the more cold call recordings I'll have. The more content I create, the more DMs and engagement I'm going to have, right? So that's initially where you go to collect all of your information from. And then that's the information that you use to dictate the direction that you want to be going in the future.
Again, kind of sticking on the LinkedIn and content topic there. How
Yeah.
how does content and the style of content that you put out impact both like your personal brand
Yeah.
as well as like the lead generation? And do you think about certain bits of content being for one or the other, or is it all kind of one in the same?
For me, again, considering that like I am a team of one right now, it's all the same, right? My personal brand is my business. Whatever I create is gonna attract my ideal, customer profile. The thing about personal branding is that now you're not just selling a product or service, you're selling yourself, you're selling your beliefs, you're selling your philosophies. So the ICP that's going to come in based off your personal branding posts are going to be people that also agree with your philosophy, are going to be people that resonate with that. They say it themselves, they think about it themselves, right? And so this is where creating a brand and creating a personal brand, intertwine. You're creating a company brand of people who fit your ideal ICP, right? Call it marketers in Fortune 500 companies, right? And then you're
Mm-hmm.
putting out personal branding posts about how you came from, I don't know, like a very bad upbringing with your family, right? Your parents were alcoholics, right? You were in and out of foster homes, whatever it may be, right? That's your personal story that you're putting out there. A lot of people in that ICP are now going to resonate with that story. And that's the people that are going to be coming to you. And to use like a real life example of this, go look at Gary Vee. Go look at like Alex Hormozy, right? These people are using their personal stories to affect their ICP. And so they're not just getting a very broad ICP of marketers and Fortune 500 companies. They're getting ICPs of marketers and Fortune 500 companies who also have dealt with adversity in their life, dealing with alcoholism, dealing with movement around the country, right? And these are the people that really resonate with their message.
Yeah, all the jet supporters that Gary Vee is keeping around.
Exactly.
those
Exactly.
those poor folks. Those poor folks.
Terrible.
Yeah. So if I'm a seller, I'm kind of a bit of a junior SDR, right? Like I man the phones, or I'm just sending out a bunch of emails kind of day to day. I've got a LinkedIn, but I really only use it for jobs or trying to look source job opportunities. I don't really think too much about it. Like, what
Yeah.
would you tell somebody like me in this scenario of like, why is building some sort of like personal brand on frankly whatever medium or whatever
Yeah.
kind of social channel, like how does that ladder up to you being a better cold caller or talking to your ICP better?
Yeah, I think what I would say summed up into one sentence to anybody who is not leveraging LinkedIn for anything is what are you doing? Like stop wasting your time, right? Stop wasting yourself. I think LinkedIn's a great place to hone in on very connected conversations. because LinkedIn has the highest engagement rate in terms of people actually DMing you and talking to you versus any other platform. And so you're going to win by default by just talking to real people. To the other part of it, it's like you can gain so much from LinkedIn. You can get a job, you can learn from other people, you can communicate, which is a big piece of it. And the more you communicate, talking about what you're going through, talking about what you're learning, talking about your philosophies and your ideas, the more people are going to follow along that journey or challenge you or teach you something new. There's this SDR from Common Room. He's like 18 years old and he like just started posting on LinkedIn like, I don't know, 5 months ago. And he's gained such a big following because he's telling people about like how he's learning the ropes of being an SDR, what he's going through every single week. And he's just like gaining such huge amount of traction in audience. People love it, right? Like that's what I'm talking about. You learn from your community.
People love rooting, especially for like the new guy on the block, a new guy
Yeah.
or girl.
Yeah.
I don't want to say necessarily an underdog story, but when you have somebody that comes out, there's a ton of people, right, that are doing the building in public founder type stuff, and
Yeah.
those are all well and fine. Everyone loves a good founder led
Yeah.
journey, especially when they stick with it. But especially
Yeah.
someone going through the day to day of hundreds of thousands of people across the country, like those are really kind of fun. So for somebody right to kind of continue in that SDR, I'm doing the cold calls.
Yeah.
I posted a couple of times, but of course, because I'm brand new and only have maybe 500 connections at this point,
Yeah.
my mom is the only one that's liking my posts, or maybe
Yeah.
my brother or something like that. But in a week or two, I know more kind of will be coming. So
Yeah.
what I'm really mainly using LinkedIn specifically for at this point is still kind of that outbound, the cold outbound. I'm sending
Yeah.
messages. How do you tackle and how do you think about using LinkedIn as an outreach
Yeah.
medium, and how do you use those conversations to get like a cold lead into a bit of a warmer lead, or even just a relationship to tap on the shoulder in the future?
Being super intentional. What I mean by that is do not send a cold DM or an automated DM that you yourself would not want to respond to, because you're going to burn a lot of bridges that way. You send a cold DM to somebody who's in your ICP, who you're making content for as well. They don't like you anymore. They don't interact with your stuff. They badmouth you to their friends, right? Be a lot more intentional with how you communicate with your ICP, whether it's a one-to-one medium or a one-to-many medium. There's a lot of really, really good salespeople out there that are doing a great job. Like Troy Munson, he DMs a lot of people. He does a lot of cold outreach on DM. He also posts a lot on LinkedIn, but the conversations he has on DM are like great. Like he talks to people like a human being. He's not like, hey, this is the service I provide. Like here's a problem in the market. Do you want to book a call? Right? Like that's not a normal conversation.
What are I'm sure there's a ton, but do you have right now like a current as the kids call an ick when it comes to like DMs, like when you open up your messages, is there one style that when you come across you just go, oh my god, I can't deal with these?
Yeah, a couple licks. First thing is anything in your tagline that says helping blah blah blah, right? Like everybody has the word helping in their tagline. Like please move away from that. Like I made a tagline for myself that would be like that, and I looked at it and I was like, I hate this, so I changed it. Please take that away. In a cold DM, if you're getting any cold DMs that are like, hey Dom, great to have you in my network. By the way, this is what I do. If it's ever interesting to you, please hit me up. Like, thanks. You're not being super pushy, but also it's just super generic. It's the same thing everybody says. It's immediately like out of my mind. I try not to say hi or hey to people when I reach out to them for the first time, because it's like the same thing everybody else is doing. So immediately in your brain or in your prospect's brain, it's like, oh, this is a cold DM, right? I hate it because naturally I'm a person that says, hey, how's it going, right? But it's not what people think it is.
Do you think doing something like that, like the kind of pattern disruption of removing the greeting, right,
Yeah,
removing the hey or the hi, do you
yeah,
think that is kind of almost like the LinkedIn DM equivalent of using almost lowercase letters in a
yeah.
subject line for an email, like having it be more internal and more casual?
Yeah, it's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah, it's basically just like trying to stand out. Like nowadays, if I'm ever cold DMing people, I'll probably put their first name, exclamation mark, how you doing? Like AJ, exclamation mark, how's it going? Right? Because it's just like not something that you would normally receive. Like pop your eyebrow up and be like, okay, who's this guy? You know, like it may intrigue you for a second. It's not screaming in your face, this guy's ready to pitch me.
Yeah. Are there DMs that you get that you're like, I will respond to 100% of of these style if I get them?
Let me actually find one for you.
Yeah.
I think it's easier for me because I post a lot. So a lot of the
Sure.
DMs that I get is like, hey, you know, love your content. Like, how did you put this together? You know, like
Mm.
it's kind of like glazing me. I'm like, oh, thanks. You know, like makes me pumps my ego up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll explain how I made this piece of content for you. And sometimes it's people genuinely just wanting to learn more about how I make it, and then other times it's people trying to find a segue into selling whatever service they have. Again, since I make a lot of content, a lot of video editors ask that. Then I explain how I do it, and they're like, "Oh, so how are you doing your editing?" I'm like,
Mm.
okay,
Yeah, yeah, and those you can usually kind of there's a bit of a sniff test too. You get a couple messages in, and you see
yeah,
the way things are being led. And listen, I can appreciate that, right? Like at least we're having a back and forth,
yeah,
and it's not just the immediate pitch slap. But yes, my heart goes out to anybody in SEO and video editing or explainer videos, because good lord, they are trying to get everyone they can through their
yeah,
doors.
yeah,
Well, listen, I know we're kind of coming up on time here, but I've got one last question for
yeah.
you. It's a bit of a tough one. What does it mean to be a LinkedIn bro in 2025?
What does it mean to be a LinkedIn Pro in 2025? Gating every single piece of your content,
Mm-hmm.
spamming as many people as possible with a generic connection request, having like the most typical tagline. I help B2B SaaS companies, you know, increase their MRR by 10x, you know, selling my
AI
compliance service.
automated comments. Does
Yeah,
that fall in the wheelhouse?
AI automated comments, you know, it's just like, yeah, all that stuff, all that stuff.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, hopefully 2026 we get a new blueprint from you, you and the guys over there, and we can really take it to the next level. Dom, I appreciate again the time, the information. You're a master
Yeah,
of what
thank
you
you.
do. I'm really looking forward to see how you and this new endeavor explode, because I know it will.
I
Tell
appreciate it.
us, base and everyone listening, right? Where do we find you? How do we get more information? And how do we give you our money?
If money would be nice, yeah. Find me on LinkedIn, literally like the main platform I'm on. Dom Odoguardi. It's my handle. It's my name. I follow along the journey, and then if you want to create employee generated content, hit me up, and I will send you my pricing because I'm not going to gatekeep that.
Dom, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, man.
Thank you, AJ.